must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
In our situation, in the last 24 hours, a total of 69 samples from suspected cases of coronavirus have been analyzed in our various laboratories. Out of those, we have received confirmation that 4 people have tested positive for the disease. They include 1 Kenyan and 3 foreigners from America, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso. This now brings to 42 the number of those who have tested positive for the virus in Kenya. Of the 4 confirmed cases, 3 are based in Nairobi and 1 from Mombasa. Consequently, Nairobi continues to lead with 31 cases, followed by Kilifi with 6, Mombasa with 3, while Kajiado and Kwale have 1 each. 24 out of the 42, 24 are male, while 18 are female. Tracing of contacts continues and is ongoing. The total number of close contacts that we are monitoring as we speak are 1,426. Out of this number, 215 have been discharged after completing the mandatory 14-day follow-up period. Currently, our teams are monitoring nearly 1,000 people who have been in close contact. We have 18 individuals admitted at Bagathi Hospital waiting test results. Today, our medical teams have embarked on a mass testing for all those persons who arrived in the country last week and are currently under mandatory quarantine in various designated hotels and government facilities. These tests are based on the arrival dates. However, those who will test positive will be taken to isolation facilities. The exercise will continue until those in the facilities are all tested. We want to appeal to all Kenyans to embrace the fight against coronavirus, as opposed to assuming that this is a government affair, because it is not. And to that effect, it is really, really wrong and disheartening for those, particularly in leadership, to continue perpetuating false information that have got nothing to do with the real cases, trying to gain political mileage out of a disease is as immoral as anyone could ever imagine. It is the worst of what we can see in terms of political maneuver, and it is wrong. It symbolizes everything that is wrong with our society. For instance, we have noted that misinformation is doing the rounds in social media, where a leader in the country is claiming that there are over 7,000 people in mandatory quarantine. And while this may ultimately be the case, and even perhaps even more people might get into quarantine, it is simply at the moment not true. So why would you wish, as a leader of society? It sounds like a wish Why would you wish that 7,000 Kenyans should be in quarantine? And why would you think that the government is not telling you the truth? To hide it for what purpose? So it's really disheartening. And for the record, we have 2,050 people currently in mandatory quarantine in 14 designated places in hotels and government designated places. So it's unethical really for anyone, and more so one purporting to be a leader, to mislead people for whatever reasons they may particularly have in regards to the fight against coronavirus. Fellow Kenyans, we want to inform you that we are expanding our capacity for the purposes of intervention measures, particularly in the counties. I want to take this opportunity to say that as NAC, we are particularly grateful to the initiatives of the private sector and other donor communities who are working with the government are achieving. Private sector, for instance, has identified various areas, including schools, including air flight hangars, that can be used if the need were to arise. They can be used as hospitals, isolation facilities, if we were to go that far. And let me make it clear that there is no country on earth that has managed to contain this disease on just existing health facilities. So we know that going forward, it is indeed very likely that our health facilities can and could be overrun by just the demands. And this is why we are saying this is not a government issue alone. The protection of each individual's life, the protection against this disease is an individual responsibility as it is a community responsibility. And what we are asking our community, the business community, the religious community, everybody, is let us think ahead together. Let us ask ourselves realistically, if in other countries, if the British NHS, National Health Service in the UK, has already been overrun by the demands of the illness, even Italy it has happened, and even America is claiming that they don't have this and they don't have the other, and their health facilities have also been overrun. Isn't it realistic to imagine that it could also happen here? And criticizing the government at that point is just adding insult to injury to Kenyans. It is at that point that we as a nation should do what we have always done in times of extreme testing and in times of extreme challenges. We have always come together in our communities, in our villages, and done what needs to be done. In this particular case, we need to be looking as communities in your villages, what are the secondary schools, particularly boarding secondary schools, that we can begin to identify as potential areas where we can keep the sick if the situation overruns. We ought to be identifying what sort of Nyumba Kumi initiatives should we have. If that happens, there will be no need to cry wolf and to start blaming the government at that point, because it will be late. We need to think about owning this process as a government, as a community, and as Kenyans. Let us appreciate this is a Kenyan's issue, and every Kenyan should be on board to try and resolve the problem long before it becomes a menace to the rest of us and to all of us. So when I do this, I do not do so to minimize or diminish our responsibility as a government. I do so as a clarion call for us as Kenyans to be ready for any eventuality. We have always done that in times challenged, such as this that we expect. At the same time, I want to urge employers, as I did yesterday, to kindly release their employees in time to be able to meet the curfew time of 7 p.m. If they do not want to allow their employees to leave on time, then they should prepare accommodation for them. What they cannot do is to release somebody half an hour before 7 o'clock, or at a time that they are so sure that they cannot get home by 7 o'clock. So if you cannot release your employees on time, please prepare accommodation for them. It is unfair to release somebody half an hour, 6:30, and they live in a distant, they live in Thika, and you tell them they should leave at 6:30. It is unfair, and it should not happen. And this is where we ask for responsibility, even amongst our business community. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I come to the end, I would like to once again emphasize the need for us to observe hygienic behavior. We are asking each and every person, and as I said yesterday, if you look at the person next to you, given the fact that we have 42 people now who are spread in the counties that we have established, when you look at the person next to you, they will not have any sign that they are unwell. They will not have any sign, that they are positive. But they could well be positive. Keeping your distance, physical distance, is what is going to ensure that you do not also become positive. That's a responsibility you owe to yourself. Thank you very much indeed.
So really, we just want to assure all Kenyans that we are working very hard as a ministry, as a government, as a health sector, as a country, a whole government approach to addressing the challenge that is currently facing us of coronavirus. And the team that we have been meeting with this evening has been a team of experts, some health workers, experts in communication, experts in social media, all looking at how we work together to make sure that, number one, Kenyans are aware, they are well sensitized about what we are dealing with, that we all also learn what precautionary measures we need to take to ensure that we can prevent ourselves from getting coronavirus, and also to ensure that we protect our families. The team of experts here has been doing a lot of work in terms of their own practice, the clinical practice, the protocols around coronavirus. This is a new virus that the medics have never dealt with, that the entire health workers have not dealt with. Feel that you're very ill to go into a matatu, to go to hospital, we really recommend that you call the 719 line and get us to come and pick you through an ambulance which has got specialized facilities and with health workers to take you to an isolation facility where you can be tested. So basically, we are just aligning our coordination and making sure that we have a seamless operation even as we deal with coronavirus. And I just want to thank the entire team, the entire fraternity in communication world, social media world, our experts in health, for their for their commitment and self-sacrifice. We've been sitting here up to very late hours in the night, days on end, and people are here really just volunteering themselves to serve this nation. So my deep appreciation, and to all of us, please keep us hooked up to our conversations, be kept in the loop through #ComeshaCorona. Thank you very much.
Our world faces a common enemy, COVID-19. The virus does not care about nationality or ethnicity, faction or face. It attacks all relentlessly. Meanwhile, armed conflict rages on around the world. The most vulnerable, women and children, people with disabilities, the marginalized and displaced, pay the highest price. They are also at the highest risk of suffering devastating losses from COVID-19. Let's not forget that in war-ravaged countries, health systems have collapsed. Health professionals, already few in number, have often been targeted. Refugees and others displaced by violent conflict are doubly vulnerable. The fury of the virus illustrates the folly of war. That is why today I am calling for an immediate global ceasefire in all corners of the world. It is time to put armed conflict on lockdown and focus together on the true fight of our lives. To warring parties I say, pull back from hostilities, put aside mistrust and animosity, silence the guns, stop the artillery, end the airstrikes. This is crucial to help create corridors for life-saving aid, to open precious windows for diplomacy, to bring hope to places among the most vulnerable to COVID-19. Let us take inspiration from coalitions and dialogue slowly taking shape among rival parties in some parts to enable joint approaches to COVID-19. But we need much more. End the sickness of war and fight the disease that is ravaging our world. It starts by stopping the fighting everywhere, now. That is what our human family needs, now more than ever.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. We're now going to take some questions from the press. James Bays from Al Jazeera is asking, your call for a global ceasefire is obviously going to be difficult to achieve. I would like to ask you to address just one conflict as an example, Libya, where all parties are already supposed to be observing a humanitarian pause. But in fact, it seems one side, led by General Haftar, has used this period to intensify his military campaign.
There was a truce that was more recently decided again. It is not holding very well. And this is one of the reasons why I believe we need a global ceasefire. And all my special representatives will be very active, talking with the parties and trying to create a global dynamics in order for all countries around the world to put pressure on the parties to the conflicts everywhere to stop the fighting. I believe that this is the only way to address those situations where the parties have been quite stubborn in not accepting the need to a ceasefire when everybody knows that there is no military solution, and the fighting going on only increases suffering and makes the response to COVID-19 now even more difficult.
Just quick follow-up to that from Maria from TASS. You did mention that you were in touch with your special envoys. Have you received any commitments to the ceasefire from different sides in Syria, Libya, Yemen, Ukraine, etc.?
I'm launching the global appeal now. My special envoys will be now working with the parties to the conflict to try to make sure that this global appeal is not only listened to, but leads to concrete action, leads to a pause in fighting, creating the conditions for the response to COVID-19 to be much more effective. And let's not forget, those areas that are ravaged by the conflict are areas where the capacity of response is very limited. And if the fighting goes on, we might have an absolutely devastating spreading of the epidemic.
Yeah, and so Jessica from France 24 is asking a related question. Can you explain how you would protect the world's most vulnerable from the virus, refugees in particular?
Well, the UNHCR and IOM have been working hard to have a plan, working with the host countries in order to create conditions in refugee camps and or in settlements where refugees are, together with internally displaced people, both to prevent the arrival of the virus to those places through different measures, but also to create the capacity to respond and to mitigate the impact inside those camps. I appeal for the international community to fully support those measures. They will be included in a humanitarian appeal that we will launch on Wednesday, asking for $2 billion to allow us to have a humanitarian response more effective in relation to those dramatic situations where COVID-19 has needs by itself, but at the same time is linked to a desperate situation already in the countries affected.
Betul Yurik from Anadolu Agency is asking, do you think the measures taken by the world leaders are enough? And if not, what other steps would you like them to take?
I've just sent a letter to the leaders of the G20. I think it is clear that we need a much stronger coordination. Coordination in suppression of the disease, coordination in making sure that not only the developed countries can respond effectively to the disease, but that there is massive support to the developing world, not to let the disease spread like wildfire in the developed world. And then a huge package, a package to respond to the economic and social consequences, but not as in 2008, a package essentially aiming at the financial center. Now it's a human crisis, so the package needs to make households be afloat, make businesses be afloat, keep societies being afloat in this very difficult circumstance. And this will require a double-digit of GDP support in the developed world, and creating the conditions through the IMF, through the swaps among central banks, through the creation of new facilities. We need to mobilize enough funds to allow the developing countries themselves to be able to have an adequate economic and social response to the crisis. And then the need to make sure that when we recover in a more sustainable and a more inclusive economy.
Great. Pam Falk from CBS News is asking, are you concerned that this crisis is diverting attention from some of the world's other problems?
It is true. The crisis is diverting attention from many other issues. We need to be able to respond to the crisis, but at the same time, as I did today, to make sure that responding to the crisis, we are also addressing some of our major concerns. When I ask for a global ceasefire, the global ceasefire is, of course, absolutely essential for an effective response to the crisis in areas of conflict, but is also a value in itself. War doesn't make any sense when you have an epidemic, but war doesn't make any sense in any circumstances.
Okay, just two last questions. A number of journalists who are online are asking what world leaders you've spoken to.
I've been sending today a message to all G20 leaders. I've been speaking to several of them, and I intend to be in a virtual conference with all of them this week.
Okay, and the final question, how are you feeling, Mr. Secretary General?
I'm feeling strongly determined. This is the moment in which the UN must be active. The UN must fully assume its responsibilities, first doing what we have to do, our peacekeeping operations, our humanitarian agencies, our support to the different bodies of the international community, the Security Council, the General Assembly. But at the same time, this is a moment in which the UN must be able to address the peoples of the world and appeal for a massive mobilization and for a massive pressure on governments to make sure that we are able to respond to this crisis. Not to mitigate it, but to suppress it. To suppress the disease and to address the dramatic economic and social impacts of the disease. And we can only do it if we do it together, if we do it in a coordinated way, if we do it with intense solidarity and cooperation, and that is the raison d'etre of the United Nations itself.
Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in.
I'm joining the World Health Organization's Safe Hands Challenge. Hand washing is one of the most effective ways of preventing the spread of coronavirus. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 40 to 60 seconds.
Fellow Africans, since 1957, when Ghana gained independence, there has been quite a lot of political, social, economic indicators on the African continent that show that Africa has progressed from pre-independence Africa to post-independence Africa.
Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. From now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs.
66 years down the road, Africa finds itself with the first country, Ghana, having gained independence. We find ourselves still locked up, controlled, manipulated, instructed, logistically supplied, equipped by foreign powers that dictate our agenda. Africa is endowed with plenty of minerals, resources, good weather. The climate is so favorable for the growth of food enough to sustain us. But we find ourselves in countries where hunger is killing people. Hunger is killing people because most of the people have taken to arms to fight wars, conflicts. Starvation has taken the place of development. In most African countries like Sudan, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Nigeria, in Biafra, and north of Nigeria there is Boko Haram, Somalia in the Horn of East Africa. We have taken to conflict instead of development. Development was the key indicator. When Kwame Nkrumah made the first speech that seek ye African political unity, economic development will come automatically, he was right. The events happening in Libya today vindicates Nkrumah, vindicates Nyerere, Sekou Toure, and NASA, the founding fathers of our Pan-Africanism. The events happening in Central African Republic, in Congo, today as the war of rebels ranges on between the rebel and the rebels and the government and the rebels vindicates the founding fathers of this revolution. Our independence, therefore, was only on paper. Our independence, therefore, was only in symbols. Our independence also was in signs. Our independence also was in boundaries. That we received our flags, but we never received full independence as by the word independence. Most of the 3/4 of African countries, French-speaking countries, have their budgets being done in Paris. Is that independence? The Paris government or the French government does its budgets based on how much they will get from African countries. Is that independence? Is this the Africa that you want? Is it the Africa that we must look at? Is it the Africa that we shall leave for the future generation? If the answer to you is yes, then so be it. But if the answer is no, you agree with me that this is not the Africa we want to live for the future generation. Our generations and the future generation need to find a legacy. What is the legacy that Africa and African Union will leave for the future generation? The wars ranging in Libya, in South Sudan, in Khartoum, in Mogadishu, in DRC Congo, in Amazonia, in Cameroon, Boko Haram, Mali, in Mauritania, the uprisings in Algeria, all point to one thing, that yes, we are not yet independent. We are still controlled by external forces. Thank you. Viewers and the comrades, the people, the Pan-African people of Africa, and mainly the people of Kenya. Elections in Africa create difficulties. Everywhere in Africa, you find conflicts emanating from elections, results declared, the loser does not come out to concede. Elections, if not well managed, can trigger the worst crisis for any nation in Africa. It is therefore very prudent for the people of Kenya not to buy populist ideas and forget the hinge point of electoral reforms, electoral injustices, electoral systems, mechanisms that can change Kenya and bring a credible results of an election where the losers and the winner will agree this was a fair contest. Given that circumstances, the circumstances that surround our badly managed elections, Kenya faces this challenge. A referenda of reducing MPs to zero does not solve your problem, because that problem of Kenya is a structural challenge. It's a structural challenge in the sense that the structures themselves give access to more money stolen, to more money hidden, to more money misappropriated by various institutions. Therefore, to have credible electoral reforms, credible electoral systems, credible electoral mechanisms will resolve 1/3 of the Kenya's problems, in that we shall have credible, proportionally elected people who represent all the views of the people of Kenya. That is my take. And that's the take of anybody who looks at the current situation, that any group that would come up and has not discussed the question of elections in Africa and in Kenya as a case study, and use it and look at how many dead bodies do we always collect when we mention the word elections. It is all over Africa. In Uganda, it is happening. In Zimbabwe, as we speak now, they are on the streets of Harare. It's because of elections. They want to come and overthrow and break down everything in Zimbabwe. It's elections. So elections in Africa create conflicts. But how can we stop violence before and after elections? Is through proportional representation of the model of South Africa, which has held elections, but there's peace on the streets of the cities. Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you very much, my people of Kenya. That's my message. I stand to be corrected, but I think it is only until you get a proportional representation system that will deliver every part of this country into your house of representation, into your elections, is when stability and tranquility will be permanent forever in this country. Thank you.
Of the media, it is a pleasure to be with you in this virtual stake out. I know one of the UN correspondents has been hit by the epidemic. My thoughts are with all of you in this difficult moment we are all facing. We are facing a global health crisis, unlike any in 75-year history of the United Nations. One that is spreading human suffering, infecting the global economy, and upending people's lives. A global recession, perhaps of record dimensions, is a near certainty. The International Labour Organization has just reported that workers around the world could lose as much as $3.4 trillion in income by the end of this year. This is above all a human crisis that calls for solidarity. Our human family is stressed and the social fabric is being torn. People are suffering, sick and scared. And current responses at the country level will not address the global scale and complexity of the crisis. This is a moment that demands coordinated, decisive and innovative policy action from the world's leading economies. We must recognize that the poorest and most vulnerable, especially women, will be the hardest hit. I welcome the decision by G20 leaders to convene an emergency summit next week to respond to the epic challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, and I look forward to taking part. My central message is clear. We are in an unprecedented situation, and the normal rules no longer apply.
Healthcare workers, your safety must be your priority. You have to take care of yourself well. You have to be in the adequate PPE. For instance, when you are at triage, you have to put on your basic apron. You have to put on your gloves. And then if you suspect influenza-like illness, then you'll have to put on your mask. You'll have to ensure that you dress yourself properly before you continue with the patient.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting all the way from the Republic of, in the command center of Punchline Africa, political command center, away from the headquarters of Punchline in Nairobi. Good morning, Miriam.
A very good morning to you, Doctor. How are you doing today?
The rest of Africa, wherever you are in Cairo, I'm doing very well down in the political command center of Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting via the satellite in conjunction with SBCC of our brothers in Cameroon. We are together through Berlin. Thank you very much, my studios. Thank you very much, my other satellite managers right in Berlin, in Germany. Thank you. Good morning, all of you in Africa, wherever you are in the United States of America. Thank you very much in the United Kingdom. My family, good morning. How are you? You are keeping on. We are soldiering on, and we are keeping the movement all the time. And all the time, God is great, and we shall be hopeful that one day, and one day only, salvation will come. God will take away the cup that is on us. Thank you very much. Back on the business. Today, our topics in Good Morning, 2 sections. The first section is Kenya. Updates in Kenya, lauding the message of the Minister of Health, CS, the great guy himself called Mutahi. This is the guy. Worldwide, you can see as I bring it on, and I believe the production team right in Nairobi will bring him on. Thank you very much. That's the guy who is saying that what it is, what must be done. We must now laud his guidelines. We continue our role as a media. That's why the media was put on the gazetted organization of the media, of the government. We are essential services. We are the media who should spread the message, who should tell the government guidelines what government can do, what can be done in circumstances of this nature. Let me take to Miriam, who will guide us through the newspaper this morning and give us the Kenyan updates of Mr. Mutahi Kagwe. Thank you very much as I follow from here and interject from time to time. Over to you in the studios of Punchline Africa in the headquarters. God bless.
Yes, indeed. And then after the Kenyan updates, we shall look at the topic of the day, that is priorities, civic education, volunteers, and the role of the NGOs in the fight against COVID-19. And then later on at the top of the hour, we shall look at the role of AU and regional organizations from Addis Ababa. And also, we have the latest figures from across Africa and indeed across the world. So now we start with the Kenyan headlines. Even as we, that headline there from the Standard newspaper, Doctor, is very encouraging, and we see there thumbs up. Health CS Mutahi Kagwe has captured a national imagination with stately briefings on the coronavirus pandemic, calming public nerves as the country comes to the grips with its biggest crisis yet. And so the appointment of Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, who's been in office for just about a month or so, was very timely. At this time, Doctor, of all the CSs President Uhuru Kenyatta has, and the others who have been working, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe seems to be a blessing to this country, especially in this time of this crisis. What would you say to that?
I have no more extra words, but more encouragement to Dr. to CS Mutahi Kagwe. Mutahi Kagwe, I told you, I am a personal friend and I don't want to say much. I knew him in 2004 when I came down from London with 6 crew members of Sky News to interview President Kibaki. He was a minister of information, technology, communication, and something in GPO headquarters upstairs. When I entered with 6 white guys, Mutahi Ngunyi just looked at me and said, "Oh, you are Dr. Matsanga. Yes, I've seen you several times on CNN and Sky News. Are you the head of these guys?" Yes, he said the job is done. You will have the interview with the president. I mean, after being run by several people in the ministry, being taken this way, being taken that way, he just decided, and I got the interview. And when I wanted to come here, he said, "You have got your card, permanent card, because you are leading 6 white presenters here. You are the person in charge of Sky News for Africa." I deserve good credit. Mutahi Kagwe is a Pan-African, is a nationalist. He believes in the values of this country. He believes that we can do better as a country. He believes that we can stand and win the war against COVID-19 or COVID-19. He believes that if we take the measures, he believes it is not us. It is not only the president. It is us, all of us. When you are caught here as a tourist or a pilot bringing a plane here, and you are now in Nairobi, it is us in Kenya. It doesn't matter what color you have. It doesn't matter what religion you go to. It is us in Kenya who must make a difference. Who must, Miriam, today I am thrilled. I listened to the story of my Ugandan young daughter who is in Wuhan. The way she glimmered, the way she became up bubbly, the way she told her story. Encouragement. That one we shall look at today, Wuhan, after Wuhan. What next? And I think by that time I would have an interview. I'm promising the world the first interview from who won with that person. I'm still looking for all the logistics. They are already in service. I will speak to her. She's from Uganda. She gave me encouragement to come out and speak. What she said on television today in the morning, and I think by the end of this production team, I would like to have our production go to national NBS TV Uganda, pick out that clip. Then you will know that there is hope. You will know there is hope. The girl said the things that Mutahi Kagwe is saying, which people are not following. She said hygiene kept them alive. She was not even treated. They were not treated. They were just locked, curfew, lockdown, and they were given services. They got food. They are now helping those who were not well. They were, and they just followed the discipline. And that is what everybody is looking for. Wash your hands, keep a distance of 2 meters. Yes, when you have signs of cough, don't cough in public, don't cough for everybody. Just keep away at home. Stay home and stay safe. That is the message. This girl inspired me this morning, and I think the whole day I'm going to be charged. Well charged. Over to you, Miriam. That is the message that I saw from Wuhan.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. They're indeed very encouraging. We want to hear more of those stories because at this point, it's all has been gloom and doom, but there is some brighter side of everything else. And so encouraging stories are really welcome at this point. And so also on that front page, Mr. Mutahi said, I'll quote this quote that the Standard newspapers put on the front pages there, that Kenyans must treat this march with the seriousness it deserves by adjusting and changing their lifestyles. If we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally. That is a very key thing there, message from Mutahi Kagwe, our CS for Health there, and Kenyans should pay heed. So now we turn to the Star newspaper. Doctor, you have the Star newspaper with you?
Yes, I have the Star newspaper. Mm-hmm. Coronavirus cases hit 42 as curfew bites. What do you think of this headline? Curfew bites. Is the curfew biting?
I
don't know how it is biting. I think the curfew is saving us. Some of the headlines in this country are just create more stress, more. There's no hope. There's no sign of hope in the headlines of the newspapers in your country, Kenya. There's no hope. It doesn't give hope. It doesn't, as the curfew bites. A very good headline of reporting, then it finishes with very bad wording. The curfew is biting who? Us. So where people, it discourages, it creates a state of saying we are suffering under curfew. What was it that was being done apart from several road runners who at night run? There were the industries that want to work at night. If you have a building, you can house your people. Essential industries like bakeries. I have friends who are working in bakeries. They have been given special cards. I have journalists are working. They are on the streets of Nairobi. What is biting you is to stay in the bar. Maybe what is biting most people is to have the side dishes that we always do eat outside. It bites. You can't lie. There is one thing that is also coming out. Lying is not there. I believe Miriam is smiling because all married people, both men and women, some of them have started having good manners. There is no lie that you are going somewhere, you are with a meeting, you are in Mombasa, you are in Nakuru. This is the only thing that people should be talking up as missing. But to people who have been practicing everything properly, there's nothing. By 8 o'clock, you are in the house. Those who might be missing are the people who work at night. like the younger generation who should be crying foul because of this cause and going to nightclubs up to morning. Then he tells you he worked so hard last night. Then when you ask the person worked where, you find it was in a nightclub throughout up to morning. But apart from that, this headline does not fit the 42 casualties, 42 cases that Kenya has hit. That is my take.
All right, and so just below that headline there, it gives us the number of cases in Nairobi, 31 cases, Kilifi 6, Mombasa 3, while Kwale and Kajiado have 1 case each. And just below there, we see the advice from World Health Organization. I think it is important. I shall take us through this advice from the World Health Organization so that we continue keeping safe and ensuring that we are protected wherever we are. And so, look after your physical and mental health. That is important. Eat healthy and nutritious diet to boost your immune system. Limit your alcohol consumption and avoid sugary drinks. Don't smoke. 30 minutes of physical activity a day for adults, 1 hour physical activity a day for children. If your local or national guidelines allow it, go outside for a walk, run or a ride, and keep a safe distance from others. Dance to music, do some yoga or walk up and down the stairs. And also, if you're working at home, don't sit in the same position for a long period, and get up and take 3 minutes break every 30 minutes, and keep a healthy mind and look after your mental health. As well as it is normal to feel stressed, confused and scared during a crisis. So it's not abnormal that sometimes you're feeling the anxiety. And also talk to people you know and trust. Support the other people in your community. Check on neighbors, family and friends. Compassion is medicine. And also listen to music, read books or play a game. Try not to read or watch too much news if it makes you anxious. And also get your information from reliable sources once or twice a day. So doctor, there's something else, and a health a concern that might come to this from this quarantine in the houses. And they're saying the number of health issues might go up in terms of even children. Obesity is on the rise because now even children are not allowed to go play outside, so they will be in the house, and because they're all over the place and we want them to calm down, you'll be like, okay, go take that snack, eat, and just sit there and watch television. So there's not a lot of physical activity, and so this also, after this is all done, the COVID is gone, we might have other health lifestyle matters to deal with. I don't know if this is something that we should worry about, even as the World Health Organization encourages people to try to keep healthy and perhaps take a walk and all this during this time.
Thank you very much, Miriam. They have talked of something very, very, very serious, that eat nutritious diet. Here we are. I have my nutritious diet. As you can see, I don't know whether you are seeing, these bananas are part of the nutritious diet. Bananas from the market, buy them, eat them. They are nutritious. Buy oranges, which I have. As I have told you, you can see from back here. We have apples, we have orange, and we have, apples, orange. Let's be practical. Some of these foods are in the villages. Oranges, apples, eat greens, drink hot water, lemon. This is why I am doing it practically this morning, because people needed to see. Africa needs to see first. If an African has not seen the truth, you will not convince him. And that's why we are having so much problem that we must bring this to here. This food is nutritious, and this food keeps you, other than you are talking of sitting in one place. I have been doing exercises. I have my Rumba music, which I dance for 1 hour in the afternoon. I put on my Rumba music and the dance and the sweat. Those old numbers of Franco, of Madiru, of Arusi Mabere, of Lesi Wanyika. Those are the numbers. Franco, all this of Kanda Bongaman. Or most likely, most of you who hate African music, like Miriam, you can as well turn. I don't know. You have never told me you like African music.
Come on, those are very. That is a very strong word you're using. The hate. I don't. You know, I love rumba. That is my outside of classical music. I love rumba. It's my favorite music. So
today, Miriam has declared she loves rumba.
I listened to that. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. You love rumba, but take those exercises, inside the house. There are so many equipments that are now bought which you cannot need to the gym. Apart from what I'm supposed to do, I'm missing on the swimming, which I should be swimming every evening. I swim 30 laps to make sure that I am fit, but I'm missing that. But the rest, I have something in the house. If I can, where I can use for exercise for 20 to 30 minutes, and then dance, then try to talk to friends. Don't talk to side friends. Talk to people you know. These are some of the things. This time, this man, I think he had our message. He has started working. The World Health Organization Director General is working. I might consider not taking any further action after the coronavirus is over. Read books, but don't read material that will worry you. Read the good stories of Wuhan. How did the people survive? Wuhan, how did the people survive? Yesterday I was interviewing Professor P.L.O. Lumumba. I think you heard what he said. He's reading a book from Mao Zedong, the man who, the war, the rules of war. That is even more militarized. I don't know why Professor P.L.O. Lumumba wants to be militarized.
No,
but
that's a good book.
As you look at all these aspects,
yes,
it is good, but you must get your information from reliable sources, like from Mr. Mutahi Kagwe. Yes, get information from this CS man. This guy is no joke, man. He's coming down very nicely. Now we would like him as PR gurus like myself. He's a journalist. I would like to package him on one or two things that I would like to send a message. Friends, you correct. As you do these things, there is a possibility that there is you can overdo it, and it can create problems. Because I am the one of those gathering information on all social media platforms. You can see what people want to do and what they want to talk about. So, in essence, he's doing a very good job. He's come out at the right time. And that's why you have these detractors coming down on him now, trying to disable him. Because these are the people, previously, Miriam, don't forget, this MP KJ was one of those people who had actually wanted to dismember the name of President Uhuru Kenyatta in Mount Kenya. And he has been going around in Mount Kenya several times. He's the main man behind the PR machinery that actually frustrated the Agenda 4 of the government of Republic of Kenya. So you should not take him lightly. He has apologized, but all these things he has apologized are things that we needed not to hear. These are things that he should not have done. He is a member of parliament who should have actually known what to say. Over to you, Miriam.
Indeed, thank you so much for that. And also just below on the front pages there of the Star newspaper, we see the National Treasury opens accounts for voluntary pay cuts. So we've seen a number of high-level public servants, starting with the president and his vice, saying they will take a pay cut starting end of this month. And the president and his vice will take 80% pay cuts, and also cabinet secretaries and the assistants and people like that. And even governors have come out and say they'll take a 30% pay pay cuts. So now the National Treasury has opened an account for voluntary pay cuts, and I think this is what Kenyans really wanted. Just one account, so that when all this money comes in there, there will be one source of management of this fund, so that at the end of the day, these Kenyans who volunteered their money to go into helping the country in fighting the COVID-19, at the end, when this is all said and done, they might get a proper channel. They might understand how this money was spent, and also accountability for accountability purposes. So that is a good move there by our National Treasury.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
The next newspaper is, we have 5 minutes on that topic, and the measures to save Kenya. Exactly. A critical step to cap COVID-19, which is for Kilifi, Mombasa, Kwale, where confirmed cases have had multiple contacts, roll out mass testing. That's very important. Mass testing in Wuhan. Is it Wuhan?
Wuhan, from Hubei province there in China.
Hubei. Okay, let me say Hubei province.
Yes.
Because Wuhan has become a problem in my mouth. But this lady was saying there was mass testing also in Wuhan, where people might have gone to shops. So they eliminated the number of those who could actually get into contact, and put those who have got into contact aside. 2, for Nairobi, where there is evidence of community transmission, trace all contacts and roll out mass testing for them. Immediately restrict movement to only that which is essential. Mandatory quarantine of all recent travelers for 14 days. I think they are doing the same. What the standard is saying is what the government is. They are reading too much into it, yet it is coming. And I think the minister has said it already. And 3, for quarantine, establish rapid response teams to screen and test all who develop symptoms, and establish medical teams to attend to those in quarantine. Testing should be done on day 8. Positive cases isolated, managed, and those who test negative remain in quarantine until 14 days. All the airline crew and the flight engineers who have operated locally international flights in 21 days should be tested. I think that, and the crew and the airline crew, all airline crew, that is very good. Kenya Airways, we have a problem. All the crew who have maybe traveled in the last 21 locally, because those planes come, when they come, they are given on local flights to Mombasa, to Kisumu, to Malindi, to around this area. Even those that come from regional places and from Africa, from the world, in London, England, they should be tested randomly. Those are the Daily Nation today.
Yes, and just to add on that, Doctor, I think there's something you've been bringing up. The last time you traveled outside the country, you said you were shocked to see when you got to London, everybody there was protected, but our crew who are operating on our flight were not really protected. So this is something that you had raised, you've talked about earlier, time and time again. So yes, it is okay for them to go and get tested and perhaps quarantine. Yes.
Much earlier in February.
Yes, you did. You did.
I saw everybody, when this thing, in fact, it had not hit in Africa at all. There was nobody in Africa who had actually got it. It hadn't reached here. But when I got out of the airport in those days, very early towards the beginning of February, I saw so many people with masks. So I went also to buy my masks. And I bought my suit and said, what is this? I was thinking. Then when on 18th of, I said, Africa, are you prepared for this? Because I had seen that the situation in Africa, the article that I wrote, the situation in Africa was going to be a very bad situation. And indeed, I'm vindicated. It is not very bad yet, but everybody is focusing on us because of our poor health conditions, health institutions, and infrastructure. Everybody is saying Africa, Africa, Africa. But thanks God, we might turn out. We might be all right. I've told you, you might be all right. God knows what he can take away from us. He has the strength. Thank you very much, Miriam.
Yes, and just before we leave the newspapers, on the Daily Nation up there, I see 50 members of parliament, parliament staff also sought for testing. Now the National Assembly wants lawmakers and staff who may have interacted with MP who recently tested positive for the disease to be tested and sent on mandatory quarantine in bid to curb new infections. You see there, another national leader there tested positive, so they're seeking for 50 members of parliament as well as parliament staff who might have come into contact with this lawmaker so that they can undergo testing and mandatory quarantine there. So the government has some work to do there. Ministry of Health has to get these people under mandatory quarantine.
Thank you very much. We have only 5 minutes. We have come to the top of the hour, I think.
Yes.
Which we must now focus on priorities, civic education, volunteers, and the role of NGOs in the fight against the COVID. I think with this one, let me go straight to reading it so that we finish within 10 minutes. The Red Cross, I'll read some parts and over back to you, Miriam. Mm-hmm. The Red Cross and the Red Crescent National Societies in the region are scaling up their preparedness and the response with support from the International Federation of Red Cross in the world. It made critical IFRC emergency appeal of 32 million Swiss francs. It aims to support the national societies across the globe. That is very good news. But the problem is it made the national societies are helping communities affected by outbreak through community-based health and hygiene promotion, access to basic services, support for containment of treatment. Therefore, the national society is working closely with the health authorities to keep people safe, tailoring their actions depending on needs and the phase of the outbreak they are in. Over to you, Miriam.
Yes, indeed, and that is just in Kenya, and we're seeing elsewhere also the Red Cross is really trying, because last week we were calling upon the volunteers and especially Red Cross. I don't know how much they've been doing this in Kenya particularly, but we've seen them in countries like Lebanon. They're the ones who are transferring the COVID-19 patients to designated hospitals. We've seen them train 145 emergency medical technicians ready to respond when needed. That is from Red Cross. And 300 Red Cross volunteers have also been trained in the COVID-19 awareness, and also in a country like Iraq. We've seen teams of Iraqi Red Crescent on the ground raising awareness in the communities, and so on and so forth. Even in a country like Iran, whose death toll is now continues to rise, and I think is the 4th, if I'm not very wrong, in terms of the number of the death and the infections there. And so we've seen them do a lot across the world, and also the IMF said it stands ready to use about 1 trillion lending capacity to help countries that are struggling with the economic impact of the coronavirus. Doctor, this is a very, very great move by the International Monetary Fund there, especially in the third world countries like Africa here, who we have so many debt there. A lot. I don't know which country does not owe the IMF in Africa here, but so it stands ready. It says regardless of the debt that this countries might be owing it stands ready to help out wherever help is needed. It is ready to lend and to give whatever help. But this is a very great move there by the International Monetary Fund.
The international fund stands ready, mm-hmm. and to use 1 trillion lending capacity to help countries. I think I saw the International Monetary Fund talking to President Uhuru Kenyatta, the person in charge, talked to President Kenya, is in talks, and she was very satisfied and very happy with what Kenya had done so far. And they are willing at the first line of defense, the fund can deploy its flexible and rapid dispersing of emergency response toolkit. The managing director was talking to President Uhuru Kenyatta, and they have agreed on a number of things. So the IMF will ease. But the topic that we must be, which I will be bringing up, I'm just waiting for more details from China and Wuhan and that province. What is it called? I'm waiting for that.
Hubei.
Hubei.
Yes.
I'm waiting for that. Some of the things. I'm going to introduce a very good topic on African continent that Africa will follow. Because we need, at this time, not to think about what is here. We need to think about what is there. What will happen after this COVID-19 is over? What next? This is the topic that I will discuss maybe later on tonight at 8 p.m. on Matanga Africa Perspective. And just get yourself tuned to this. You'll listen to what I mean. The times could change from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock because it looks like 8 o'clock, people are just assembling themselves home. Some are just beginning to do what they used not to do. So we shall shift that discussion to 10 p.m. to 11 East African Standard Time. What can we do after this? Because you know very well at the moment, we have not thought about the future. We are thinking about now. But we must think that this COVID will come to an end. And that is why we are happy. And with the minister, and when we had this number, I've been calling upon very many people to come to us, volunteers to come out and help the government. Today, I'm very happy that the government has put an account and you can go. I hope it has been announced, Miriam.
Yes.
That is what every country is doing everywhere in the world. You don't rely on government money at all. There are people who have private capital. And this is the time for you to chip in, even if it is 1 shilling, 20 shillings, it will go towards this fund only. That is very, very good. Thank you very much for listening to us, the Minister of Finance and others who are handling this project.
All right.
Thank you.
And we've seen the Africa CDC is working with all affected countries and is mobilizing laboratory surveillance and other response support where requested. CDC has also requested the CDC Foundation, an independent non-profit organization, to activate the Emergency Response Fund to provide support to rapidly emerging response needs. And they sourced for support from individuals and organizations to provide much needed funding to meet response needs where federal and state funding is not available or available quickly enough to meet the need. So we've seen the Africa CDC come in also. But also in Kenya, very good news. Kenya is in talks with the World Bank for budget support for about $750 million and the International Monetary Fund, of course, for the $350 million in emergency assistance there. The country also expects to receive $50 million from the World Bank to support its efforts against the brunt of the corona pandemic. And the central bank governor, Patrick Njoroge, earlier a few days ago said in a briefing that policymakers cut the benchmark interest rate to an 8-year low. So, all right, figures there. So Kenya will receive the help it requires. And I think this will go a long way should this money be given to the country in helping, in helping the fight against the COVID-19 there. So, so far so good. So, Doctor, before we get to the African Union and what it is doing there, can we, I don't know if you have the latest statistics with you. So perhaps we could just go through them for the sake of our viewers out there who are watching us from across the world, the statistics that we usually have country by country. I don't know if you're able to access, you have them with you there.
That's a practice package. We shall bring it in the diaspora dispatches at the end.
All right. Okay.
Yes. We shall bring it at the end, then you'll read them, because we are going to cross over to Addis Ababa in a few moments. And in a few moments to Addis Ababa. And I don't know, we shall cross over to Addis Ababa to talk to Dr. Mukhtar, but it seems that Dr. Mukhtar is not even on, is not available. His signal is not on. He must have gone to another meeting today where he is. But here we are. We can now start with that as we look for Dr. Mukhtar wherever he is in Addis Ababa. Thank you.
All right, even as Doctor continues there to get us the latest and to get in touch with Dr. Mukhtar, who I think has the latest information there from Ethiopia. And Ethiopia is very important at this point because it is where the AU headquarters are located. And we've seen that help that was given by Jack Ma. I think Mr. Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, tried to speak to him on behalf of the continent, and he did a great job. And so Ethiopian Airways has been distributing some of these kits that were donated by Jack Ma across African countries. And by right now, I think majority of African countries have received this donation from Jack Ma. And we shall look at that while looking at the role of the African Union and regional organization from the Addis Ababa. But right now, I'd like for us to just look at the latest statistics as of the 30th of March today. As of an hour and a half ago, these figures might have changed, but this is what we had about an hour and a half ago. So we shall start. And with Kenya, confirmed cases now stand at 42. One person has recovered. We are still waiting for 2 more to be cleared because they have already tested negative, but they have to go through another test after 24 hours for them to be completely cleared. And also 1 person died last week.
Yeah, you can read the first 5, then I read the first 5, the next 5.
All right, so in South Africa, confirmed cases now stand at 1,280. Recovered persons is at 31, and the people who have been recorded dead there are 2. And in Uganda, confirmed cases stand at 33. In Tanzania, confirmed cases stand at 14, and 1 person is said to have recovered. In Somalia, confirmed cases is at 3. And all right.
Under Zimbabwe, the confirmed cases are 7, 1 dead. Then we have Ethiopia, 21 cases, 1 recovered. You see, yesterday was a different figure, isn't it? And it has changed. And then we have Sudan, confirmed cases 6, 1 dead. We have Angola, confirmed cases 7, 2 dead. Then we have Zambia, 29 cases, no death, no recovery.
All right, and we move. Yes, we move to Egypt, where confirmed cases now stand at 609 and recovered 132, and people who have said to have died is at 40.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Algeria, confirmed cases is at 511, recovered 31, and dead is also 31. And in Morocco, confirmed cases is at 479, recovered cases at 13, and the death there that has been recorded is at 26. And in Tunisia, confirmed cases is at 312, recovered 2, and death there has occurred. 8 people have died.
Yes. Burkina Faso, confirmed cases 222, recovered 23, 12 dead. Ghana, confirmed cases 152 in Ghana, and recovered 2, 5 dead. You see the number in Ghana has increased. And Senegal, I think, yes, Senegal, confirmed cases 142, recovered 27, no deaths yet. Mauritius, confirmed cases 102. You can see it has moved to 3 dead in Mauritius.
All right, I think we could be having a problem there with our networks. I think I'll just continue, and if Doctor can come back, then we shall continue together. So I'll just, he done Mauritius, and so right now in Ivory Coast, confirmed cases is at 165, recovered is at 4, one person has been reported dead, and in Nigeria, confirmed cases stands at 111, recovered 3, and one person has been reported dead, and in Cameroon, confirmed cases is at 139, recovered 5, 6 dead. And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, confirmed cases is at 81, recovered 2, and dead 8. And in Rwanda, confirmed cases stands at 70, no death has been reported there, nor recovered. And in Madagascar, confirmed cases is at 39, and in Togo, confirmed cases is at 30, recovered 1, and dead 1. And then we move to Mali, where confirmed cases is at 18, and one person is said to have died. No cases of recoveries there. And in Niger, confirmed cases stands now at 18, with one person dead. And in Equatorial Guinea, confirmed cases is at 12, and Namibia confirmed cases 11, and recovered is 2. And Guinea has confirmed 8 cases. And we go to Mozambique, where cases that have been confirmed in Mozambique is 8, and in Seychelles, confirmed cases is 8 also. And Gabon, confirmed cases 7, one person dead. And in Benin, confirmed cases 6. And in Eritrea, confirmed cases is 12, and in Gambia, confirmed cases is 4, and one person is dead. And in Liberia, confirmed cases is 3. So the total number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Africa right now, an hour and a half ago before we came on air, as I said, these numbers, they keep changing. So by the time we were coming here, was standing at 4,370. And let's just look at a global summary there, with the total cases confirmed globally, 723,124. And this is by the time we were coming here. So if you check the international figures, you might find that these numbers have gone up just slightly, or even skyrocketed, depending on which country these numbers are coming from. And so confirmed cases today, only today in the world, is at 765. The death globally is now standing at 33,986, representing a 4.7% of the total infections. And as I said there, these numbers right now might be even at 34,000. And the number of deaths that have been recorded only today is at 20, and recovered globally is 151,798, representing 20.99% of the total infections. And of course, Italy, confirmed cases there now stands at 97,689, and the dead now in Italy has surpassed the 10,000 mark there at 10,779. Very indeed sad figures there from Italy, and recovered cases there now stands at 13,030. And we go to the United States, which is now leading in the number of infections there, and confirmed cases in the U.S. is at 142,639. The people who have died in the United States are at 2,485, and recovered is at 4,559. Confirmed cases today only in the United States is at 177. And China, confirmed cases there stands at 81,470. The number of people who have died since this coronavirus started. Remember, it started from China, and the death there that has been reported so far is at 3,304. And the people who have recovered from China is at 75,700. And confirmed cases today is 31. We've seen China now registering new infections because they're saying these infections are coming out of China. And now China has gone ahead and closed all the flights that are coming into China have been burnt, and they're closing their borders now. Very interesting. And Spain, confirmed cases there is at 80,110. Death there, the people who have died is at 6,803. Recovered persons is at 14,709 people there are said to have recovered. We move to France, and confirmed cases in France is 40,174. The number of people dead there stands at 2,606, and people who are said to have recovered is at 7,202. And in the UK, confirmed cases stands at 19,522. The people who have died from the UK is 1,228, and recovered is 135. Remember, these figures, we got them just about now, maybe perhaps 2 hours ago, or close to 2 hours, and so these figures might have changed. So if you have heard a number there and you're checking the current statistics and they don't match, that could be the reason why. So no need to worry there. And if there's anything there that you need to update us on, please go ahead. Even as we work on getting Dr. Matsango back, let's just look at some African news. Even as we continue talking about the coronavirus, there are a lot of other things that are happening. And then when he comes back, we shall look at the role of the African Union and regional organization from Addis Ababa. So as we wait for production to work on that, we start with Burkina Faso, where a homemade bomb killed 3 soldiers in northwestern Burkina Faso on Sunday. The attack happened after a patrol vehicle jumped on a mine in Gomboro in the Sorur province, according to Le Faso News website. 2 soldiers died on the spot, while the third one succumbed to injuries while being treated. And in Nigeria, the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, has announced, finally Buhari showed up. Nigerians, you've been asking for this guy, and he's been MIA. So finally yesterday, President Buhari gave a televised, address to the nation of Nigeria. And when he was talking, he announced a lockdown in the cities of Lagos and Abuja in an effort to contain the spread of the COVID-19. The restrictions will start at 2300 local time and on Monday, and will also apply to Ogun State, which borders Lagos. The lockdown will take effect for an initial period of 14 days. Mr. Buhari said everybody would have to stay at home, all businesses and offices would have to close, and only food shops, hospitals and other essential service providers would remain open. Nigerians or Biafrans, if you're watching me out there, this announcement by President Buhari, is it just a little too late, or is just on time? Will it make any difference in the number of the new infections in Nigeria there? You can tell us. Yesterday, President Buhari came out and addressed the nation after a very long time and not showing up, and people didn't know where he was, but he was there yesterday. Doctor, I see that you're back with us. If you hear me, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miriam.
Yes, sorry for that technical hitch, but welcome back.
Yes, I am happy that you are already touching the African news.
Yes. All right, a bit of a hitch there. Let them continue working on it when we are completely ready. All right.
Are you back?
I think, yeah, we're back. I think there's a bit of a signal problem from your side, but welcome back. Yes, I was looking at Nigeria, and President Buhari for the first time came out and addressed Nigerians yesterday after all that time that Nigerians had been asking for him. And when he came out to talk, he said that there will be restrictions in terms of traveling and moving, a lockdown in the cities of Lagos and Abuja. This move by President Buhari, is it a little too late, or is just right on time, and will it make any difference in terms of curbing the spread of the COVID-19 there in Nigeria?
Yes, there is at last a sign of relief that the guy has arrived, come out. I did not watch the televised interview myself, but I don't know whether he was himself or somebody else. You know, there is a problem now. We don't know whether he's the one or there is someone else doing the things as it is stands in Nigeria. But that is a good sign. You have been asking for him to be out, and especially Miriam, you have been on his heels that you want him to speak. I am happy that he has spoken, and that is very good for democracy in Africa.
Mm-hmm. So we read there earlier about Benin. I think before you had a problem there with your signal, and Benin's numbers, confirmed cases there in the country stands at 6, relatively low, but still. And now we see President of Benin, President Patrice Talon, coming out and saying that it will be difficult to enforce prevention measures in the country because people were too poor to cope with them. And of course, recent student protests calling for classes to be halted due to the virus left one dead. So President of Benin there, Mr. Patrice Talon, does not seem to be taking this coronavirus problem very seriously, and is saying, if anything, Benin is too poor to even implement a curfew or any other measures to ensure that people keep safe. What is so expensive about telling people to wash their hands, Doctor? Do our African leaderships, others, really understand? You cannot be too poor that you cannot wash your hands. Why is he saying that the country is too poor to enforce some of these preventative measures?
I think there is a problem here that we Africans have. We have that mentality, Miriam, of always trying to beg and trying to cry out when we can do some things ourselves. That's why you find that in Africa there is no needle, there is no money. Very few countries manufacture box of matches and toothpicks and the pins. We send this timber to China to manufacture toothpicks to bring them back to us. So don't get surprised. I don't know why you are surprised. I am not surprised. In fact, when you started talking, I said, I don't know why Miriam is getting worked out on this. These people do happen. These things do happen in Africa, my dear. A president does not want to be accountable. He says now he has no money he wants to beg the bank to give him money. Mm-hmm. You know, that is what exactly is taking place in Africa.
So, Mr.
Yes.
The president has seen an opportune moment for him to get some money from outside. And also, before we get to our topic, the role of AU and regional organization, Doctor, yesterday Malians voted in a long-delayed parliamentary election a day after the country's first coronavirus death. The poll was overshadowed by Wednesday's kidnapping of opposition leader Somali Cisse by suspected Islamist militants. As it stands now, Mali has confirmed about 18 cases and one person is dead from the coronavirus. The country still went ahead to have its elections yesterday. What are the dangers of such moves by the different governments we have in Africa?
You honestly think that is an election?
The opposition was abducted last Wednesday. The head of opposition. Picture in this country, President Uhuru Kenyatta decides we shall go on with the elections while the opposition leader Raila, who is his main rival, has been kidnapped. Can you even picture that happening anywhere in a sober democracy?
My sister, we don't have any elections in Mali. I don't know. We should not even waste our bundles to discuss Mali because there was no election there. The terrorists have taken half of the place. Terrorists. They were killing people in Ouagadougou, a few miles away from the polling station where the President Keita is. There is no election in Mali. Mali, in Bamako, place has been taken over by Al-Qaeda that came from Libya, and that whom Muhammad Gaddafi had been protesting and saying, if you kill me, this Al-Qaeda will come and take over these countries. So we have seen the history coming back to haunt us. As usual, Africa, we always cry when it has happened.
Okay, and of course, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra there, Mr. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, Friday evening announced the donation of 50 million naira to states in Biafra land to fight coronavirus pandemic. And Kanu said while making the announcement of the donation on Friday on a radio broadcast there, he described it as a contingency fund from the IPOB's coffers. He said that the part of the fund will be used to ensure that some hospitals located at strategic centers in the southeast zone are equipped to tackle the scourge of corona there. So, all right, a bit of African news there. So now let's come to the topic of the day, Doctor, the role of the African Union and regional organization from Addis Ababa. I don't know if you've been able to get in touch with...
I've not been able to get in touch with Dr. Mukuta, but I think we can skip the topic until Dr. Mukuta comes back to brief the people, because we are eager to see the people briefed by Dr. Mukuta. He has a very serious, we could combine it with the afternoon show. So thank you very much, Miriam, for this show. Thank you very much. Unless you have something for good morning, do you?
Not quite. Perhaps just a few update from a country like Somalia, where the African Union Intervention Force in Somalia is restricting access to its base camp in the capital Mogadishu, and also in South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa traveled to remote resort in Limpopo province to oversee the release from quarantine of dozens of people who had returned from the Chinese city of Wuhan. And also in Tunisia, employees at the Tunisian factory are churning out 50,000 face masks a day and other protective medical gear after opting to go into a lockdown at work. So the 150 workers, mainly women, have isolated themselves at the consumed factory for a month. So these very patriotic Tunisians have said, you know what, this lockdown will find us in the factory because we shall sacrifice our comfort. Instead of being in our homes, we shall continue working and ensuring that we produce as many face masks as possible to protect the Tunisians. So this is a very welcome move right now, and these are some of the I think volunteering spirit and the patriotism that we require to see from Africans right now. So I think that is a very commendable move there by those. I hear majority of them are women from Tunisia.
I think we have some breaking news coming in. A plane carrying coronavirus medical supplies crashes and kills 8 people, in Nigeria. That is very bad. A plane believed to be conveying or carrying coronavirus medical supplies has crashed during takeoff. The aircraft bound to Haneda, Japan, crashed at Manila International Airport in the Philippines, killing all the 8 people on board in Manila, Philippines. The Punch newspaper of Nigeria has just sent it right. It is right now here.
Yes.
The plane carrying coronavirus supplies has just plunged in takeoff and killed 8 people on board a cargo plane that was going to Japan.
Yes, I think that happened yesterday. I saw the news early in the morning, and it was taking some patients. I think the 8 were being taken forward. Yes.
To our attention that we have not told our viewers.
Yes.
So I just said, let me read it now.
Mm-hmm.
As it stands now, Miriam, thank you very much for all. Unless you have anything else for me on this side, I call it a day and I wait for you at 3 p.m. The lessons of Wuhan. Let Mr. Production find that tape of the Ugandan lady. How did Wuhan get out of this? How did Wuhan try? How were they able to? You remember we had a lot of Kenyans and the Kenyan people saying, bring our children back. But I've been trusting the my investigative forces, intelligence forces in doing investigative analysis in Wuhan, only managed to get into the Ugandan whose number we shall use this afternoon. She is well and she is bubbly. All of them are bubbly. Government officials in Uganda used the money that was meant for them, but they were helped by the Chinese nationals and they are now helping the Chinese themselves. Wuhan is back working. So that's a very encouraging lesson for us in the world that things can run better, things can become better, things can work better. Thank you very much. On behalf of Punchline Africa Television, God bless you.
Doctor, before you leave, one of our viewers is telling you to put a Somali flag on behind you, and also we are told the video from Uganda, the one you're referring to, is ready. So I think we shall play it in our afternoon show when we talk about.
Let's leave it as Stephen. Can you send it this way? We leave it as a precise breaking news.
All right.
Let's not play it now. Thank you very much, viewers. We shall be here 3 p.m. and we shall see after Wuhan what lessons, what is there on the ground, and the reality from one serious survivor, an African. Wash your hands, stay a distance of 2 meters. If you have cough, don't cough in public, isolate yourself, stay at home. Stay safe, stay at home, stay safe. I think, Miriam, I don't know where the printer is working, but you should print a big poster, which I'm going to print. Everybody, journalists are doing that. When we start, stay safe, with that on a white paper. Stephen will do it for you. Stay safe, stay at home. Yes, stay safe, stay at home. When necessary, you can stay at home. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless everybody. I don't know what is, can I also join the joke?
No, there's no joke. We shall see our viewers later at 3 p.m.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.